going to read to you an excerpt this morning from 1 Corinthians 12. So Paul's letter to the Corinthians is one of his attempts to speak to a community that he had founded in Corinth. And he is constantly trying to find ways of helping them understand how they are called to live together. Paul himself was a scholar within the Jewish community, yet he recognized that the tradition in which he had been raised and educated, and then had been re-articulated by the teachings of Jesus, was meant to be bigger than any one sect or religion. The religion that shaped him was not a proselytizing religion. In fact, Judaism at that time was a clan. And while there were signs that this clan was called to be a blessing to the world, was called to be a window through which the world experienced God, it tended to do what most clans do. It established clear boundaries, keeping clan members in if they behaved, and excluding those who were not members of the clan. And so Paul sets out to share this new understanding, this new vision of God and life in the Spirit with the Gentiles, which meant everybody else. And what he indicates, and I don't think we have any idea how radical this is, and in fact, the truth that he was able to pull it off at all is nothing short of miraculous. What he indicates is that there is room in this new community for everyone. And that everyone has gifts that will contribute to the functioning of this new community that he calls the body of Christ. And he does not understand this movement as a new religion. But he speaks of it like a body where everyone belongs, everyone is playing a unique role, and when they work it all out, both the individuals are healthier and the body creates a healthier world. There are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but they all come from the same Spirit. There are different ways to serve God, and we can each do different things. Yet the same God works in all of us and helps all of us and empowers everything we do. The Spirit has given each of us a special way of serving others. Some of us can speak with wisdom, while others can speak with knowledge. But all these gifts come from the same Spirit. To others, the Spirit has given great faith or the power to heal the sick or the power to work mighty miracles. Some of us are prophets, and some of us recognize when God's Spirit is present. One of my favorite hymns, though it is almost impossible to sing, because Brian Wren, the poet, writes the most phenomenal lyrics that nobody can find a singable tune to. Come build the church, not heaps of stone, but friends of Jesus, Spirit blown. So it was 10 years ago, next Saturday, that a couple who at the time were connected to St. Andrews said, "Lynn, we understand you like Celtic music. If you like Celtic music, you have got to get yourself to the Waring House to see Tom Layton and Conrad Kipping." And so I went with my friend Bonnie, a colleague of mine who was in town for my induction, and Phil and Bonnie and I sat at the Waring House. I know exactly where we sat. Not the best place to listen to the music. And I sat there and was completely delighted and healed and encouraged by this couple of musicians. And so I thought to myself, I'd think maybe we'll just ask them to play at St. Andrew's, because if they're healing and delighting and encouraging, then they are totally spirit blown. So I issued the invitation. They said, sure. And I recall, though I wasn't told at the time, the anxiety within the community that a couple of guys from the pub were going to crash church. But, you know, after the guys from the pub crashed church that day, 92-year-old Ellen March danced out of the building, looked at me on the way out and said, "Finally, we've got some life around here." So I'm not excluding Conrad here. You understand it just didn't fit in my sermon title, right? From Tom to Tom to Tom to Tom. Tom Layton from Nova Scotia.
New Brunswick.
Okay, I was wrestling with this last night. I know you were. Grew up connected to an Anglican church, which is why he knows all the old hymns and why he gets really perturbed when we change the words of the old hymns on the screen. Who has the most mystical sensibility, who invites me in the way that I don't think a preacher ever has, to live in the mystery. Come build the church, not heaps of stone, but friends of Jesus, spirit blown. I first met Tom Dietzel. It was November of 2008 when Libby had organized that most phenomenal, as only Libby can, Remembrance Day event with the tenor Julian Gallo-Wright, Lenny Stewart, and this guy on the piano who was like phenomenal. And I went, oh, I've got to meet him. So I went up to him at halftime and said, "So, who are you, and do you want to come play at St. Andrew's?" To which he responded, "Oh, no, I'm kind of full-time at this Catholic church in Belleville." But about 2 years later, I ran into him again, and it didn't sink in that he was the same guy. So I did the same thing. "Who are you, and do you want to come play at St. Andrew's?" And he said, "Yeah, I think I'm free." Tom Dietzel grew up in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Was an exceptional musician as a child, but would tell you that one of the reasons he was an exceptional musician is it was his way of coping with some very challenging things in his life. Went on to study for 10 years, he tells me, at the University of Regina. He studied philosophy and psychology and a whole bunch of music. He comes with another perspective altogether. Incredible classical training, but just loves to be invited to break out of his own box. I can tell you, and he will tell you as well, that we have been healing community for him as he has been healing community for us. Come build the church, not heaps of stone, but friends of Jesus, spirit blown. Who would put money on the fact that not one guy who was raised in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, would walk in this building, but two? Tom Johnston, born in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, about 5 years ago, makes his way over here from Wellington on the Lake. "What brought you here this morning, Tom?" "I was looking for a Presbyterian church." He said, "I grew up in a Presbyterian church." Well, Tom, and I don't think Tom would argue with me, might be a bit of a traditional guy. And I thought, you are completely welcome here, Tom. let's see how all this works out. But before you knew it, Tom, who has this incredible background, it's a secret background, really. He was the librarian at Wentworth Prison. He worked with prisoners as volunteers as a librarian. He was an exceptional outdoorsman until just a few years ago was downhill skiing. Took over the sale of our vouchers, and then when we announced we were going to Iona as a group, said, I'm in. I have always wanted to plant my feet on the soil of my ancestors. And since he's been back from Iona, I can tell you that he's basically served as our verger. That's the name of the person at Iona who goes into the sanctuary and gets all the candles ready. Make sure there are matches. It is quite something to see Tom try and get those candles lit. But we are committed to that mystical spirit a la Iona. Thank you, Tom, for showing up from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Come build a church, not heaps of stone, but friends of Jesus, spirit blown. Tom Mullen, who most of you haven't met, showed up here on Christmas Eve. When I met him for coffee last week and said, so Tom, what brought you to St. Andrews on Christmas Eve? Good King Wenceslausness, he said. He said, I just really wanted to sing Good King Wenceslausness. And I said, should have been here on Advent 4. When Tom and Conrad are here, they always do Good King Wenceslas. Like nobody else can. I listened to Tom talk about what else brought him here. This is really something. He said, when I saw on your screen on Christmas Eve that you had a group going to Iona, I could hardly believe it. It's been a dream of mine for 20 years. So didn't he show up on January 1st and sign up to go to Iona with the Circle of Friends at St. Andrews? But I'm still trying to get a bit more out of him. You know that, right? Like, why else are you here? And then when I heard him talking about the importance of not leaving anyone behind. He had lived 30 years in New Hampshire, and he said, the biggest problem in our neighbors to the south is that there were just so many people got left behind. You can't leave people behind. And he shared about how his work used to take him around Asia, and being in a hotel room in Bombay one day from where he could see the dump and children gathering there every morning to get their breakfast. We can't leave people behind, he said. And I thought, now I know why you've really shown up at St. Andrews. Because you share that vision with us. And the day before, I said to Evelyn, who's been working overtime with jobs that aren't really hers, but you know, Doris Geraldine left here about a year and a half ago, and Evelyn served as the envelope secretary too, just by default. And just like, you know, the way I said I was waiting for Holly Clayton, the dancer, to show up after 10 years, and she showed up, right? And like I've been waiting for the envelope secretary to show up, and I said to Evelyn, I think he might have shown up. And sure enough, with this big background in spreadsheets, et cetera, he said, sure, I can do that for you guys. Come build the church. Not heaps of stone, but friends of Jesus, spirit blown. And Lori. I missed it. Tom, and Lori. Lori is Conrad's now wife. He finally married her. After 18 years. Lori shows up, as does Sandra, Tom's wife, to be part of this circle of friends from time to time. And when Lori was here in November, I think we had every single prayer shawl up here, and with about 7 minutes straight, they were all gone. And she said, Lynn, while I was listening to the blessing of those shawls, she goes, I just teared up. And she said, I have a business whereby I import things from Mexico and I have some shawls, and may I please contribute some of these shawls to your ministry? I'd really love to be part of it. Come build a church, not heaps of stone, but friends of Jesus, spirit blown. About 10 years ago, Barbara Brown Taylor, an Episcopal priest in the U.S., wrote her book, An Altar in the World, in answer to the question, what is saving you right now? In the spirit of the Apostle Paul, we have created a new community. We have engaged the gifts of many, and in doing so, I think we have created a circle of friends that might well just save our life on any given day. Save us from the fears and anxieties of this world and the next. But we've also created a circle of friends that's been prepared to save the lives of vulnerable girls and vulnerable artisans. People just coming alongside, wanting to invest in compassion and courage. We have reinvented the church so that it is way beyond the stones that have assembled these walls. Our circle of friends has been assembled with living stones from north and south and east and west. And there's even a Tom I haven't told you about, who's a volunteer with Reaching for Rainbows. And unlike many churches of old where you were required to conform, here we invite you to bring your gifts not just to serve this larger spirit-born vision, but in some cases it is your unique contribution that further shapes, and in some cases, that further shapes this vision, that encourages us to be more inclusive and more compassionate and more courageous. So I can tell you that if it weren't for those guys from the pub who came to crash the church, we would not be the circle of friends we are today. The greatest of spiritual gifts come from the places we least expect it. And our tradition says very often, they come from the outside, catch us by surprise, and together we're transformed. I'm going to invite you during this time for contemplation to make an inventory of the blessings that have been yours because you have participated in this circle of friends. Look around you. Turn around if you need to. Seek out those people who have been for you salvation, who have been for you courage and encouragement, who have reminded you of the greater call to justice for all. Look around and check those people out who have touched you in ways that have been your healing, that have been your joy, that have been your wholeness.